Every time I hear that song, I'm just, I get in this zone. I get excited because it means that we are, once again, joining each other through the means of modern technology for another episode of the Gracious Guest Podcast. So I'm your host, Mike Creevy, the humble host of this podcast. I say that, by the way, not as a sort of a brag, but just as, sort of a true sentiment that I feel very humbled to be able to do this, just to have the ability to do it, the capacity. And I'm no tech guru. I'm not, necessarily all up to speed on every last little detail that I'd even like to be when it comes to podcasting. I'm always learning stuff, but it is a very humbling experience to do this podcast, to do the blog, and to come to visit different parishes and groups and folks who might look up on the website there, thegraciousguest.org, and see something they'd like to have me come and present on. And, it's something I tend to do on the side, but something I find really rewarding and exciting and fun, and hope you do too. So if you enjoy this podcast, please spread the word, tell your friends, share it with someone you think might get something out of it. If you know someone who likes movies, who likes books, who likes even just one of the many different topics I kind of float around and touch on. Even if you don't subscribe to every single episode or download every episode, rather you can subscribe to the program, leave some comments over there on iTunes, and just let me know how the show has sort of impacted you, if it's helped at all, and if there's topics for upcoming programs you'd kind of like me to pursue when it comes to wonder and marvel and trying to tap into that realm beyond maybe what we can see and experience sort of tangibly right in front of us. So at any rate, today I wanted to shift gears a little bit here and look at something that I guess it's kind of like part meditation maybe, or sort of an invitation to kind of just consider a question. And that's what the title, of course, here of the program today is, namely, what's your story? We say that. You'll hear people kind of bring that up. It's kind of I don't know how many people I've heard actually say it that way. What's your story? But it's, a way of getting at the deeper question of who we are. And I was thinking of this actually recently, the 2012 Spider-Man movie. It's kind of hard to keep track of all these Spider-Man movies and reboots over the years. But the first installment of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man. And at the end of the film, spoiler alert, it doesn't really ruin the plot, I guess, but he's walking into his high school literature class late, and the professor or the teacher is standing there, and just before he gets there, she's kind of kicking off class. And she says, I had a professor, back in the day who said that there are only 10 fundamental plots, basically, in all of literature, and that just kind of keeps repeating. She said, I'm here to tell you that that's not true. That there's actually only one. Who am I? And I thought that was really neat. Well, it factors into that movie. Obviously, that's a big kind of theme throughout that. But wow, I mean, I think she's right. And this kind of goes back to some of the work of Joseph Campbell, for example, the great sort of scholar of different religions, comparative religions, and also he studied a lot about ancient myths and kind of storytelling as just a study, really. He was very much influenced by the work of Carl Jung, Jungian archetypes, the idea, that there's some kind of great, capital letter, sort of thing or form, in a sense that then we see echoes of that original thing or that original concept or whatever it might be all throughout life. And a good example of that is, a sort of analogy that I often think of with that is anytime you make a copy. And we've all, done this. Typically copiers can obviously be really, really good and really, really not so good in terms of, which kind of copier you have access to. But let's say even if you have a really, pretty good pretty good copier. There's just something, when you take that original and put it down and it spits the copy out, the copy's never quite exactly like the original, or as perfect as the original. And or if you think of like your printer at home, running out of ink, and as it goes or as it gets older, and all these different things can kind of happen to give a variety of printouts, that might not be up to snuff. It might not totally be what you wanted it to be, or as good of a copy as you wanted. And I was thinking about that analogy, and it made me think about some of this stuff. The idea of those archetypes, or those sort of stories that really resonate with us, those themes that resonate with us, that are kind of all throughout literature and all throughout movies and all that kind of stuff that we keep running into. And just, a couple that come to mind. You think of the theme of sacrificing for a cause, or sacrificing for a friend. And that resonates with us. Frodo, he makes all these sacrifices on his journey to Mount Doom, this fateful journey that he's totally choosing freely. No one's making him do it, but yet at the same time, there's this interplay between his freedom, totally free, but also kind of fated. It's destiny though somehow. But he's not forced, and it's both. It's both of those realities together. And I think most of us, if not all of us, if we really reflect on it, can kind of see that same current in our own lives. So for example, I think of things I did in my own life that were simultaneously very free. No one made me do it. I made my choice. But at the same time, it's like it was always going to happen, like it was destiny. So biggest one for me I think of is my marriage. My marriage with my wife Christine. I mean, we totally, like, no one made us meet. Well, sort of. Our friend Julie introduced us, but we we talked and we spent time together. We chose to spend time together. We chose time to go places and do fun things, and our friendship really grew through a lot of little tiny decisions that we made freely. And then we freely chose to get married. We chose the date. We chose all this stuff. But looking back on it, like, I can't imagine anymore not being married to her, even though there was a time for most of my life when I wasn't married and I had all these potential choices ahead of me. So anyways, I think that it resonates with us when we see in good books and in movies some of these themes that kind of give us a little bit of a hint, but don't show the whole thing, right? There's a sort of a hint of destiny, as Calypso says in Pirates of the Caribbean. She's like, a touch of destiny. It's there, right? Like we kind of know that, or just have this sense, I should say. We have this sense that there's more going on than I can see. There's more happening around me than I can kind of put my finger on, Like I come up with all my daily plans. This, that, and the other thing. I got to do this. I have to go here. I have to take care of this. And yeah, that's all true, and that's very important. But somehow we know there's like a synergy, right? Like my life is something more than just all of these individual things added up. Like, right? There's not really a sum, to my life. Like my life is Christine plus Noel plus my job plus this plus that plus all these little things I have to do plus my hopes and dreams. Well, yeah, but you put all that together and there's still like, no, but it means something though. Like the whole thing means something. And now, to be fair, I know obviously there's a lot of struggle we run into. There's a lot of temptations. There's moments in life when we're really stressed out or we're facing tragedy, right? Or really terrible things that really cause us to question that or might make us sort of lose hope. And that can be very dangerous and just really heartbreaking reality. So because of that, quite frankly, that's another reason I wanted to do this show today, just to kind of get you thinking maybe about this, or we can talk about it, right? How to not lose sight of that, how to try to find ways to just hold on to that, and I think a key is practicing it when things aren't so bad, right? So don't just dismiss that, like when you feel those feelings, when you get that notion, or you read a book, or you're watching a movie, or you're doing some activity that really means a lot to you, right? to just let yourself sort of float in that for a while. Like, don't maybe be so quick to just move on to the next thing, right? So that's a real challenge for us today. Everything's so fast-paced, and all of our technology and just kind of our routine these days, we don't really practice that sort of like pressing pause, like deliberately stepping aside, getting out of the current a little bit, to on purpose sort of see the thing through, right? So I'm watching a movie, something really strikes me about it, but I don't hold on to it. I just kind of like move on. Like, well, no, how can I maybe just pause for a few seconds there? Like, what's going on right now? Why did that scene affect me the way it did? Why did I feel what I just felt? Or I'm reading a book, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody. I've got my checklist of books I want to read on Goodreads and stuff, and I'm looking at the shelf like, oh man, I got to get through all these. Just got to, like chug some Gatorade and power through it or something, But it's like, I run into a problem then where if I'm reading a book and I hit a word even, a paragraph or like a certain section of whatever I'm reading, and something just jumps out at me, and I just have a little moment. I feel almost like there's a hook dangling in front of me, And maybe that's not a good analogy, but no, there's like this, like a dock, right? If you think of life, we're going down this river, right? And we're, avoiding rocks, and we're, watching the rapids and stuff, and sometimes it's smooth, but we're just always moving. It's like every now and then, like a dock or like a little pier or something shows up, and we just want, I gotta go. Well, why? Maybe I can just take a break for a second, right? Maybe I can kind of pull up to this little sidebar for a moment, kind of pull off to the side and just think about it, pull off the road. Those scenic stops on the highway that you never stop at? That, right? Like, I think life has those moments where it's like, yeah, if I keep going, I'll get home 5 minutes earlier, but maybe I just pull off here for a second, like look at the mountain, right? Like look at the view. That's what it's there for. So those are just, I don't know, I've been thinking of things like that, and it comes back to this question of, what's your story? What's my story? What's the organizing principle of my life? How do I ever think about that? If I don't think about that, why? Why am I not thinking about that? Am I afraid of it? Do I not know how to get started, or how to even just sort of try it? To think about that for a few seconds. What's your life about? Is your life, when you really sit down and look at it, is your life, the plot line of your life, the story of your life, about you? Are you at the center of it? Like, in other words, is everything in your entire life referential to you? Okay, how far is that going to get you, right? Can that really satisfy you? That might, be okay for a while, but is that really, does that make sense? Is your life really about you? Is your life about work? Is the organizing principle the ultimate meaning of your whole existence, right? That synergy that goes beyond just adding up all the parts of your life. Is that your work? Is that your career, your 9 to 5? I don't think there's a lot of 9 to 5s anymore, whatever your schedule is. But is it work? Is it baseball? Is it football? Is it entertainment? It's a good thing to ask. Is it your hopes and dreams? The organizing principle of your life, the meaning of your life, is this adventure to sort of like do all sorts of things, like a bucket list. Here's all the things I have to achieve. Okay, that may not be bad or anything, but I might give a big thumbs up. Cool, that's a great looking list. But like, what's the point though? I mean, you get to the end of your bucket list and then what? Well, you die. Maybe you add more to the bucket list because you got it done faster than you thought. But I think it's a good question to kind of at least consider. What's the organizing principle of my life? What's the criteria I'm using to evaluate my life, where I'm at, where I'm going? Is it, if it's just about achievement, well then, okay, I achieve these 15 things I want to achieve, and then what? How do I know I'm better? Well, I did those things. Well, then what are you done? No, I'll add more things. Okay. Fair enough. But how do you know that really sort of puts the finger on your meaning, your life's meaning, the value that this world gains, in a sense, for you having been here or passed through it? How do we think about that? So even when it comes to things like achieving things for others, creating some sort of philanthropic enterprise, or you invent something, or you do a lot of charity work, whatever it is, and those things are all good. They're great. But still, I think even with that, to sit down and just reflect, what? But, I mean, someone else could have done that. Yeah, but I did it. Okay, good. Good credit to you. But, I mean, is that it? Or is there still more? Are you more valuable than even the greatest works of charity you could come up with? And I think the answer is yes. I think it's more mysterious. I think we all want, myself included, I think we all want to have an answer. We all want to have an answer to it. Why am I here? And I think deep down we all suspect it might not just be to be a busy bee, to be a great worker even, but to be in right relationship. To be in right relationship with each other, to be in right relationship with the world around us. I, of course, would dare say right relationship with God. But even if you're not there, or if that's not, necessarily on your radar, or if you're not sure about that, it's another conversation maybe we could have down the road. But for now, I kind of want to bring it to a close here today with more of the question than an answer. Getting back to the original question, what's your story? If you're sitting down somewhere, minding your own business, and someone comes up and says, "Hey, what's your story?" What do you say? You're like, well, I was born at this at this hospital on this day, and I did this and I did that, and and we all do that. It just becomes like, here's the checklist of events in my life, the bullet points of my life. But I think even as you tell that, if you're like me, there's still just something like this nagging sense in there that it's more than that, though. It's more, I can't fully express to you who I am, why I'm here, but that question's still there, and I really sincerely believe that it's that question, even subconsciously, nagging at us every time we read a book, every time we watch a movie, every time we get really involved in some kind of sport or activity or work endeavor. It's what drives us, because we want to know that we matter. We know we do deep down, I think, and when we're tempted to reject that, we want to find something to help get us back to it. I really think most people, I think everybody, wants to know that you have a story, that your story, you have a story, and that your story isn't entirely on your shoulders, that it's a story that involves others and the help of others, and our stories are all interconnected, intertwined, and that that is, I think, why it resonates so much when we see some of those kind of Jungian archetypes: sacrifice, relationship with others, perseverance, hope, that good can conquer evil. All those things mean a lot to us because they're sort of the echoes, I think, from our own souls. So I think it was G.K. Chesterton somewhere who said, in talking about fairy tales and stuff like that, and I'll kind of start to wrap up with this, that he said something to the effect of that the purpose of fairy tales is not to sort of convince us that dragons are real, okay, or anything like that. The purpose is not to convince us of that, but that dragons can be defeated. And I think that's a brilliant insight. That whatever the story is, whatever the the piece of literature, the movie, or whatever it is, we want to know that good can win out, that there's a dawn on the other side of the darkness, that there's hope, and that we can find a place within that bigger story going on all around us all the time. So, just some things to think about a little bit, right? Go ahead and reflect on that. What's your story, right? How do you measure that? What's your organizing principle? All of those kinds of questions. Kind of something to meditate on, to chew on a little bit. I'm Mike Creevy, host of the Gracious Guest podcast, and I'm so happy that you joined me today. Please, like I said, subscribe to the show if you haven't subscribed already. Let your friends know about it. Check out other episodes, other podcast episodes. I talk about a lot of different topics and stuff on here, so I think there's something for everybody. Also, check out the website, graciousguest.org, for all the stuff I'm kind of doing over there. And take care, and until next time, don't forget to wonder.